Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I went to the Target dollar spot and they had a ton of cute spring and Easter decor out. If you follow me on Instagram, I shared some of those things earlier this week, but I found some fun blanks to use with my Cricut, so I thought I would put a video together. I hope you enjoy this video and find some inspiration. If you do, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new to my channel, and let's get into the video. I'm going to be adding two different labels onto the soap dispensers. Just for the soap dispensers, I'm going to be using my Cricut Joy. So I'm going to go up here and switch this to Cricut Joy. I already played around with how I want my labels to look. So what I'm going to do is upload those images that I used. I just used Cricut Design Space images for these labels. And the first one, I'm just going to type in rounded square label. I'm going to be using this one here. If you don't have Cricut Access, it's kind of nice because this one is free. Select that and it'll bring it down to the right corner that it's selected. Then I'm going to go up and type in leaves that I'm going to be adding to this. And I'm going to have the Cricut Joy draw the leaves on. So what I'm going to do is go over to my operation type and I'm going to select draw only. Then I'm going to select this first one. It'll select both of those, then I'll hit insert images. First, I'm going to play around with this label. This has two layers that are grouped together, but to work with it, it's a lot easier to ungroup it, so I'm going to hit ungroup. Then I'm just going to change both of these colors to white. What I want the Cricut Joy to do is cut the outside of this, but draw on the inside. So I am going to select this first one. This one's the inner one that's selected, and I'm going to go up to my operation type, and this has changed. If you haven't updated your Cricut Design Space, this looks different, but it's set to cut and I want to set it to draw, so I'm just going to select pen, but this does look different. It used to say line type. So now this inside is set to draw and the outside is set to cut, but I don't want this line on here, so I am going to get rid of it. To do that, I'm going to select the pen layer since it's inside of that. Then I'm going to go down to the bottom right here and select contour. You can see there's two different layers here. I am going to select the line and it will get rid of it. So now if you just click out or hit the X, you can see that it's gone. I love the contour button. It is so awesome, and basically it erases what you don't want, especially if there's just one layer. It's hard to get rid of a piece, so that is an awesome tool. Now what I'm going to do is size these, but I'm going to highlight over both of these and group it back together just so that it gets sized together. And I'm going to make it 3 inches for the height. I measured on my soap dispenser and that's about the tallest I can make it. I don't want the width to be that wide, but I played around with it and 2.25 seemed to be a good number. So I'm going to hit unlock so it'll keep that 3 for the height, and I will switch it to 2.25. Now I'm going to take my leaf and I am going to send it to the front. Then I'm going to put one on each corner. So I'll make it smaller and I'm just going to turn it in a little bit. This one automatically sets it to the pen for drawing, so I don't need to change that at all. Then I'm going to go up to duplicate so that it's the exact same size, and I'm going to turn one this way. I'm just going to zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see this also. The last thing I'm going to do with this is go to text, and I'm going to type out hand soap. The Cricut's going to draw this out too, so I want a writing font, but I'm actually going to use a really thin font that's not necessarily a writing font. It's called Advertising Script. I'm going to bring this over here and make it a lot bigger. Then I'm just going to bring the letter spacing together. I bring it in so far and then I just have to manually do it. So I'm going to do ungroup. And I'm going to slide this over. I'm going to highlight over the N and D because that's lined up pretty good. Then I'm going to highlight over all of soap and bring that up. And I'm just going to line these up also. I like how those look. I want it to be centered though, so I'm going to highlight over soap and group that together, and I'll highlight over hand and group that. Then I'm going to highlight over both. Hopefully I'm not going too fast, but then I'm going to go to align and center horizontally. So just doing that, it'll make sure it's right in the center. Now I have hand grouped together and I have soap grouped together, but I want to weld this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is highlight over the entire thing. Then I'm going to select weld. The reason why you want to weld this together is because it'll show up with the cut lines if you don't. I have made that mistake and it did not look good. So now what I'm going to do is go up to my operation again and select pen so that it'll draw. And you can see it gives it kind of those bubble letters, but we're going to make it pretty small. And it's going to be small enough that it should draw it where it looks like a solid line. And actually, I don't want these leaves to be so big, so I think I'm going to delete one, and I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Then I'm going to duplicate it again just because I want it to be the same size. I think that looks good. Then I'll just bring this back over. I want hand soap to be centered, so I'm going to select hand soap. Then I'm going to hit Shift on my keyboard and select this outer rectangle. With both of those selected, I'll go up to align and hit center. And even though that's centered, I think I want to bring it down just a tiny bit. I think that looks great. The Cricut's going to draw everything inside the rectangle and it's going to cut the outside. I forgot to mention it, but I'm using the Cricut Joy writable permanent label vinyl. I don't know exactly what it's called, but how it works is the Cricut Joy will draw onto that label vinyl and it's not supposed to smear at all. I don't know if I would recommend getting it wet though, because that could make it smear. Now what I'm going to do is highlight over the entire thing and attach it. Next, I'm just going to do another decal for one of the other soap dispensers, and I'm going to go to images again and use another Cricut Design Space image. You can use whatever images you want to for this one. This one is Cricut Access if you do have that. So I'll insert that into Cricut Design Space, and I am going to make this 3 inches for the height. And it'll make it about 2 inches for the width. I'm going to be using the Cricut Joy Smart Vinyl for this, but you can use whatever adhesive vinyl you want to use. I would just make sure to use a permanent vinyl. Over here with this, if you wanted to do something similar and don't have the Cricut Joy, you could easily do print and cut for this also. Now I'm ready to click on Make It. I'm using Cricut Smart Materials, so I'm going to be using without a mat. Then I'll click Done. For this first one, I'm going to go to Browse. Then I'm going to go down to Smart Label Writable Vinyl, and I'll hit Done. First, it's telling me to load my black pen in the clamp, and I'll show you how I do this on the machine. Here's the Cricut Joy pen I'm using. I place that into the clamp, then I load the writable vinyl into the Joy and select Go on my computer, and it'll draw out the design. Okay. Now it says to load the fine point blade in the clamp, then I'll hit Go. I switch out the pen with the blade and it'll cut out the rectangle. When it's done, I select Unload on my computer. There's no buttons on the Cricut Joy. You press everything on your computer. Now there's a check mark by the writable label vinyl, and it's going to go down to this vinyl. So I'm going to go to Browse All Materials. I'm going to go down to Smart Vinyl Permanent. Then I'll hit Done. I load the black Smart Vinyl into the machine and it'll cut out the design. Here's the glass soap dispenser I found at the Target dollar spot. I'm not sure if I've ever seen these there, and I loved that it was glass with a rubber bottom, and these were $3. I always like to clean my surface with isopropyl alcohol before adding adhesive vinyl to help it last longer. I used my weeding tool to help remove the vinyl, then placed it on the soap dispenser. I did not place this down carefully enough because there were quite a few bubbles. I'll try to show it to you here, but that is the reason I ended up redoing it and making the design a little smaller. Sometimes a bigger shaped vinyl like that just doesn't work well on a curved surface. It might be kind of hard to see, but here are the bubbles in there. Now I'm on my second try. This time I started on one side instead of the center and try to make sure I worked out any bubbles as I pressed it down. Here's how it looks. It turned out so much better that time. This was the first time I used writable vinyl and it was really fun. It is permanent, but I don't believe it is waterproof, so hopefully it'll hold up okay. Next, I weed out my vinyl for my other soap dispenser. The letters were so tiny, so I lost the dot to my I's and the comma, and I decided not to even worry about cutting those back out. I felt like it looked okay, but I always struggle with losing those. Then I add my transfer paper. I like to use clear transfer paper for this type of project just to make sure it's lined up right. The smart vinyl is hard to transfer because the backing is thicker, so I saw a hack where you can use a hairdryer and it'll help the vinyl stick to the transfer paper. I felt like it worked pretty well. I still had to burnish the back down pretty well. I'm not using a strong grip transfer tape and that might work better also. Then I placed the vinyl down on the glass. I had already sprayed this with rubbing alcohol, then I'll remove the transfer tape. I think this adds a cute little touch to the soap dispenser. I'm going to move on to my glass spray bottle that I found at the Target dollar spot. I am going to be using my glass spray bottle to hold my rubbing alcohol, which I like to spray on different blanks before I add adhesive vinyl. So what I'm going to do is add text, and I am going to type rubbing alcohol. This is set to our other font. I'm going to switch it. I'm going to use Snow White. I downloaded this from dafont.com. I need to bring the letters together. What I like to do is make it really big so it makes it a lot easier. And I also start off by doing my letter spacing first just to bring it as close as I can. Once one lines up, then I stop and I just hit ungroup. Then I just bring the rest in. All of these letters are separate, so I'm going to highlight over all of this and just bring it up so it doesn't have as big of a space right there. Now I'm going to highlight over the entire thing and make it smaller. Before I weld it together, I just want to make sure it's lined up how I want it. That looks good, so I'm going to go down and hit weld. Now I'm going to size this. I can make it as tall as 3 inches. But when I do that, it makes the width 4 inches, which is just too big for this glass spray bottle. So I think I'm going to make the width about 3 inches. And I might even bring it down just a little bit. Now that I have this sized, welded together, I have it set to cut, I am going to switch my machine to my Cricut Maker and I'll hit make it. You can use any of your machines for this. Now I'll go down and hit continue. I'm using holographic vinyl from Tech Wrap, so I'm going to go up to my browse all materials, then I'm going to search for holographic. I'm going to choose premium vinyl holographic, then I will hit done. I place my vinyl on the green mat. I love Tech Wrap vinyl. Their holographic vinyl is so pretty. I cut out and weed my vinyl. I love my nail polish holder when weeding adhesive vinyl. I share a lot of different hacks on weeding vinyl on my hacks I learned on TikTok videos, but I always seem to come back to this one. This spray bottle was $3, just like the soap dispensers, and I love the peach color on the bottom, especially for spring. I already placed the rubbing alcohol on my bottle, then I add my transfer tape to my vinyl and apply that to the spray bottle. This was super easy and quick to put together, and I love how cute this vinyl looks on it. Now I'm just going to fill this up with my isopropyl alcohol. I usually use 90% alcohol and realized I bought 70%. I'm not sure if the percentage matters and if they equally clean off the surface, but let us know in the comments if you've happened to look that up. Next, I'm going to cut out some vinyl for a glass frame that I found. I'm going to be putting some pattern cardstock in the inside and some vinyl on top of the frame. I am going to go over to my uploads Then I'm going to select View All, and I'm going to be using Spring is in the Air. This is an SVG from my membership. All of the SVGs on this page are. If you are interested in checking out my membership, I'll have a link down below. We have a little over 200 images now, so definitely check it out. I'm just going to go up here and make this smaller. Now I'm going to go over and grab a shape. The size of my frame is 5.5 inches, so I'm going to go up to my width and select 5.5. Then I'm going to change the color of this, and I'm going to right click and send this to the back. Then I'm going to bring Spring is in the Air over this and make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to highlight over both and align and center. I like that size. I think it looks really cute. So I am going to delete this. Now I'm going to select Spring is in the Air. This has several layers, so I need to attach this. So I'm going to go down to the bottom right and hit attach. I'm going to be using a pink vinyl for this, but it's all one color, so I don't really need to go up and change my color. I could change it to pink, but it really doesn't matter when you have all of one color. So now that I have it attached and sized, I'm going to click on Make It. This is adhesive vinyl, so I don't need to mirror it, and I'll go down and hit Continue. This vinyl is Cricut vinyl, and it's kind of a shiny vinyl, but I think it'll be okay just to select the vinyl setting. I placed my vinyl on the mat. I can't remember what color this was, but it is Cricut brand. I liked how it had a little shimmer on it. The Cricut will cut it out, then I weed out the design. Here's the pattern paper I bought from Michaels. I thought this was pretty for spring. I cut it out at 5.5 inches, but I should have cut it a little bigger, and I'll show you here in a minute. Here's the glass frame that I found at Target. You're supposed to put dried flowers in it, which would be pretty, but I feel like you could get pretty creative with this, and it was $3. There's a little slot at the top that has 2 glass frames, and I placed the paper in between those. As you can see here, it doesn't line up perfectly because it falls into the slot. So if you decide to make this, I would make the paper the same size as the glass. Next, I add my vinyl. I'm using clear Duck brand contact paper for my transfer paper throughout this video. Here's how it looks, and I think it's just cute for some decor for spring. Next, I'm going to decorate a white bucket that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to upload my image for that. I'm going to be using these tulips, and this is another hand-drawn image that's available for patrons. I'm just going to make it smaller again. I measured the bucket, and I decided to make the tulips 3 inches for the height, so I will go up there and change that. Now I'm just going to change the colors with what color vinyl I'm going to be using. So I'm going to go up and hit ungroup. Now these are all separate. I want all 3 of these to be the same vinyl green color. So I'm going to highlight over the whole thing. Then I'm just going to select a green color. For this one, I'm going to do a lighter pink. This one I'm going to do yellow. And for this one, I actually don't want this little piece here, so I am just going to hit delete on my keyboard. And for this one, I am going to make it a darker pink. Now that these are all different colors, it will separate it on different mats, which is what I want because I will be using different color vinyl. Now I can hit make it, and here you can see how it separates it on the mat. Now I'll go to continue. I'm using 651 Oracal vinyl, so I'll just select vinyl. I'll have the Cricut machine cut out each color. Cricut Design Space will show you which color to cut out next, and I just follow those prompts on the screen. Here's the bucket that I found. It was $1, and I spray it off with my new spray bottle to clean it. Then I'll start adding my vinyl. This bucket has grooves in it, so I tried to work around that some. I also used the same transfer tape piece for several of the vinyl pieces. I feel like this could be fun if you have kids to personalize it however you want with adhesive vinyl, and you can use it for Easter egg hunts or to go along with their Easter baskets. You can also add a kid's name on there, and it's just fun and brightens it up a little. It's also great if you have scrap vinyl. For my next project, I'm going to be personalizing some bunny ears, and I bought 2 of them. I'm going to do this for my 2 nephews. So I'm going to go over to text and up to my font. I'm using DK Lemon Yellow Sun. I downloaded that from dafont.com. I'm going to type in Lucas. Then I'm going to go back to text and type in Wyatt. I don't really like how separated these are, so I'm going to bring the letter space in for both of these. Then I'm going to make it 1 inch for the height. For Wyatt, I don't like that the letters aren't lined up, so what I'm going to do is ungroup. Then I'm going to highlight over his name, and I'm going to go up to a line and hit align bottom. And that'll just bring it in. These T's are smaller too. I don't know, it must be just the font, but I'm gonna make it just a little bit bigger. I'm just gonna hit align bottom again. Now I'm just going to hover over this again, and I'll just weld it together. Now I'm going to make it 1 inch for the height. My width can be up to about 2.5 inches when I measured, and that looks good. I have 2 different color bunny ears, so I'm going to use 2 different color vinyl. So for Lucas, I'm going to do a light blue, and for Wyatt, I'm going to do a white. Now I'm just going to click on Make It, and since I'm using iron-on, I'm going to mirror both of these. I'm using Caesar heat transfer vinyl, but I always like to just do everyday iron-on for that. It cuts it out perfectly for me. I place the vinyl shiny side down and have the Cricut cut out the designs, then I weed it out. Here are the 2 bunny ears I found. They were $1 each. My sister has 2 boys under the age of 2, so I thought this would be cute for some pictures. I'm using my Easy Press Mini. I set it to medium. I'm not sure exactly what this material is made out of, but I looked up the poly cotton setting and it said to press with constant movement for 25 seconds. I placed my Teflon sheet on top and pressed for about 25 seconds. I went to remove the carrier sheet and it didn't fully stick, so I went over it again, and that time I think I pressed it for too long because it melted a little bit of the gray part on the ear, so you'll just want to be careful with that. I do think it turned out really cute though. For this one, I didn't use the Teflon sheet. I just felt like it was too hard to fully press it down with it, but I was also careful not to press it for too long so I wouldn't burn it. Here's how Wyatt's turned out. For my last project, I'm going to personalize a canvas bag. I'm going to go to text, then I'm going to be using Magnolia Sky. This is a really popular script font, and I've always loved this font. I'm going to type in Quinn for my daughter, and I'm going to bring it a lot bigger and bring the letter spacing in. Then I'll hit ungroup and bring these in closer to the Q. I will select the whole thing and hit weld at the bottom here. I measured my canvas bag and I decided that I wanted to make the width 6 inches. So I'll come up here and select 6 and hit enter. Then I just let it automatically adjust the height for me. I'm using a coral color. I'm using Caesar heat transfer vinyl, but I'm just gonna leave it black because, like I said earlier in the video, it doesn't really matter what color you make it if you're using all of one color vinyl. Sometimes if you like to visualize it better, you can change it. So now I'll hit make it. I'm going to mirror my design. For some reason, it didn't record the whole screen, but I hit continue and selected Everyday Iron-On for the setting. I put the HTV shiny side down and the Cricut is cutting it out. I used the canvas setting, which was 340 degrees at 30 seconds. Here's the bag I found. I thought the bunny ears being the handles was adorable. This was $3. While my Easy Press 2 was heating up, I preheated my bag. Then I lined up my vinyl on the bag and placed my Teflon sheet on top, then placed my Easy Press 2 on top of that. You can use parchment paper if you don't have a Teflon sheet. Even though this vinyl says you can peel it warm, I let it cool down just a little before removing it, and here's how it looks. This is also really cute for an Easter egg hunt and super fun to personalize. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new to my channel, and definitely check out my Patreon account in the description box below if you are interested in joining that as well.